Hello, good morning. It is a beautiful day here. I'm back home in Cumbria, where I love to be. Now, today I'm going to talk about the fourth session in the interventions that I'm doing with children aged 9 to 11 for post-COVID recovery, and we've got children with all sorts of mathematical needs in there. I've had a couple of weeks break from that because I had COVID and then it was half-term break. But I'm back in full swing now. So this is session 4, sessions 1, 2 and 3. The videos are already on this channel. If you just go to videos or Rebecca the Maths Lady videos and look back, you should find them. And where are my notes? Yeah, the first one we covered subtraction, making sure that children were counting on as well as counting back and working on their subtraction. Then we did mental multiplication with rectangles, making them confident with multiplication, seeing the strategies. The third session was on using that to find area and then going backwards from the rectangles to the factors to find factors and primes and really working on short multiplication. So session 4 today, what we're looking to do is we consolidated short multiplication with this worksheet here, which I'll explain. And then this is a separate worksheet, but I'll publish these both in the Facebook group later this morning. The Facebook group is Expert Primary Maths Teaching. You just go to the files section, you'll be able to find this. And this second worksheet, I just folded them in half to show it's 2 worksheets, was on the foundations of division, making sure children really understood it. So what did we do? Well, I showed them these multiplications. We've got multiplications by large numbers and multiplications by decimal numbers, both of which they found very scary in general. But I was reassuring them that they can do short multiplication, they can do these. So for the large numbers, we just made up a calculation as a class and talked about it. We would do something like, maybe something like that. And we would talk about naming the number, how we go back 3 digits, put in a comma, 3 digits, put in a comma. And then we say that number of million, that number of thousands, 691,000, 2,691,047. And then we'd work through it as a group, going round one at a time, doing a result. Hi, if you're watching, please feel free to post any questions. Setting it up correctly. Your questions take priority as ever during the live stream, times 3. Unless you're asking for a visa to come to Britain. Sorry, it's not happening. So one child would go 3 times 7 and figure that out. And we're reminding them also, a lot of these children are really struggling with their tables because they've missed that. So they may have to write out their times table. And if they do, that's fine at this stage. We're trying to get them motoring with and enthusiastic about their maths so they can then see the point of learning their tables. And we just go around the class and work through this and puzzle out the answer, setting things up carefully as they have done in their class. And then they would name the answer using the same strategy. And with working with decimals is really interesting. A lot of them are terrified of decimal numbers. They've never understood them at all. They've missed that. So if we say something like, at this stage, all I'm trying to get them to understand is that that number is 2,179 and a bit. If there's a decimal point and some numbers after it, oh, sorry, the sound quality on this will have been awful. I've just realised my mic's off. Just put it on now, so that should improve it. Sorry. So I want them to understand that that is 2,179 and a bit. So at least they've got some sense of what it is, because a lot of children have not got that. They just haven't got it at all. And then I'm reassuring them that once they've got that, all I'm asking them to do, if that is times 5, say, is 2179.36 times 5, just as before. And you can have a discussion about how you set this up. Just reflect what they do in their ordinary classroom. And the only difference for doing that is you've got to get the decimal point in the same place. And then we work through it and show that it works out exactly the same. So we're beginning, and as we say this, we focus on when you're naming a decimal number, cover up that bit, say the name of that number, then say point, and then read out the digits one at a time. So trying to give them confidence, they've got beginning sense of what decimal numbers are, and they can work with them. And then they work on this worksheet individually. I'm marking every child's question, each question they answer as they go. I'm always there to help them if they're struggling, because in small groups you can do that. And then when they've finished each question, I'm asking them to say their answer correctly using the strategies for naming numbers that we've just discussed. And with the decimals, I'm asking them, what two numbers is that decimal answer between? So if they've got 37.525, I want them to say it's between 37 and 38. Now, that's an appropriate standard for the children I'm working with. They've not yet done long multiplication by two-digit numbers. So if they can do this, they are now motoring with multiplication. They're really ready. They're back up to speed with their class, and they'll be picking that up when they'll be able to just do whatever they're doing in class now, which is just great. Obviously, if you're working with kids who are at a slightly different place, then you'll need to adjust this. But all my worksheets are in Word, so it's so easy for you just to adjust them and make them what you want them to be. So that's the first 2/3 of the session. And then in the final section of the session, I'm laying the foundations for division with this worksheet. So when we talked about subtraction, I was really talking about how confused people get because we swap from subtraction as taking away and counting backwards. If we're doing something like 48 subtract 2, we would be saying how much less than 48 is the answer if we're taking off 2 from it. To subtraction as counting on, and that's particularly relevant if we're doing something like 101 subtract 99. We don't want to count back 99. When we were doing the subtraction, a lot of children hadn't seen that, and once we got them seeing it both ways and understanding that we're swapping between the two all the time, they could see why they'd struggled. Now the same is true with division. There are two big models. Lots of the children are terrified of division, and I explained to them it's because there are these two big ideas. One is the sharing fairly, and so with these questions, if you've got 400 divided by 2, I'd have my Dean's blocks out on the table. I should understand that we're just sharing them between two people and saying how much does each person get, and that they're going to be able to cope with that and with that and with that. But when we get to question 5, we don't want to be sharing 400 blocks between 200 people. So we need this other idea of division, just as we had the other idea of subtraction to lean on, which is how many of the second number in the first number. So just playing all sorts of games with them to get them fluent in both big ideas. Hi, if you're watching, just say hi. I can see people are watching. It's lovely. Thank you for your time. All your suggestions, your comments are really welcome, either now live or afterwards here by putting comments in on YouTube or, oh gosh, I got someone at the door. Hang on just a second. Be right back. Just in the middle of the live stream, do you want to wait and I'll be 1 minute to finish off?
Do you want to more boots like Phil? Have you got any boots?
I can't this morning because I'm teaching at 10.
Okay.
Never mind. Catch you in 3 weeks.
3 weeks.
Cool.
If you try some biscuits on your doorstep, what time are you leaving?
About 3.
About 3?
Yeah. Cheers. Thanks. Sorry about that. Just a wonderful doctor who's going to give me some help with a family member who's very ill. So it mattered. Right. So once they are fluent with swapping between sharing fairly idea and counting groups idea, then they're going to be okay with division. And it is confused by the fact that they've been taught all sorts of strategies in class for shortcuts in particular situations they didn't understand. But this really built their confidence a lot. So 60 divided by 20, are we sharing fairly or counting how many 20s in 60? You choose which is easier, and then they could do it. 48 divided by 12. Again, which? Sharing fairly or counting groups? 7 divided by 2. 7 divided by 2. 7 pizzas shared between 2 people. Can you do that? Can't do that, can we? If you've got 7 pizzas and 2 people, well, they were convinced they couldn't do it until we drew the pizzas like this. 7 pizzas, share them between 2 people. How many pizzas is everyone going to get? And they could suddenly do it. And then the final question on the page is dividing by fraction, which of course is miles ahead of them. 3 divided by a half. 3 divided by a half. Well, you can't share fairly by half person. That's mad. I mean, you can at a stretch, but it's not very nice. 3 divided by a half. How many halves in 3? And then they can do it, and it's 6. And that is 2 years beyond them on our curriculum. And they just go out buzzing. Oh my goodness, I'm going to be able to do division now because I finally understand it. There's 2 ideas and I've been confused because I've only ever touched on one of them and then we flip to the other and my understanding's disintegrated. So some very happy children leaving that session. For children who are struggling, way back, I individualised the work. I really identified that in session 3. And it's just so rewarding. I explained how to do that in session 3. Some of the children, they really didn't understand addition. So we went back and used blocks and worked on it from scratch. And I thought I was going to have to do that with subtraction, multiplication. And I didn't. They could do the mechanics of the operations. They just never understood it. And now they understand it. They're absolutely flying. It's such a privilege to do this. I love doing it. The children are thriving. And for me, it's not just the essence of what I do in fixing kids maths so they're really thriving. It's just such an important aspect of their lives. But also, as someone who's an expert in maths education, this is like having the most amazing PhD research, the most amazing research project, postdoc research, because you always want to work with the kids who are struggling most. But getting access to them, getting schools to commit the time, organising all the protocols, getting the funding is massive. And you've never got that many students who are struggling as much as they are now to work with as a sample group. And I've got like 5 groups a day coming at me. So, wow, what an amazing experience. And I would just recommend doing this to anyone who loves teaching maths just now. It's a wonderful thing to do. But trust your instincts, talk to the teachers all the time, try and make sure every method you teach links it with exactly how they do it to make the most connections possible. Try and be aware of what they're teaching, where they're going next, so you can touch on it with the students. Just like when I was doing multiplication, I did area of rectangles and got them holding up the rectangles at the window on the squared paper. You imagine this with the window behind it. This is in episode 3, I think. And the square paper. So they really understood the size of rectangles as squares. And when they've gone back into class and they are studying area, they've got such clear imagery of what they're doing that they just didn't have before. So it's really important to link in. Okay, I'll be back with week 5 next week. In the meantime, I'll probably try and do something on the petition, which I haven't been able to do anything on because I've been teaching, but I'll get back to it soon. Thank you. Bye.